Agenda.
I can take it off. Just kind of be like, hi everyone.
Okay, yeah. Welcome, everybody. Happy Thursday. And this is our May meeting of the ATC. So glad to see everybody here. I'm gonna open the meeting officially. Thank you.
I'm gonna start with some introductory remarks. Good evening, everyone. Now that the days are long, it doesn't really feel like evening right now, but my name is Willow. I am the City of Eugene staff representative for this meeting. And before we get started, I have a few reminders and introductory words. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that tonight's meeting is being held on Kalapuya Alihi, the traditional indigenous homelands of the Kalapuya people, who continue to make contributions in their communities here and across the land we now refer to as Oregon. The purpose of the Active Transportation Committee is to advise the city staff and community organizations and partners on the implementation of Eugene's pedestrian and bicycle strategic plan, to represent community and constituent interests in transportation planning decisions, and to provide feedback on to staff on projects related to walking and biking. Eugene staff will consider recommendations from the ATC along with input from other members of the public during decision-making processes. Please keep in mind that this meeting is being both recorded and live streamed to YouTube, meaning that it can be viewed on the City of Eugene Transportation Planning YouTube channel both right now and in the future. All verbal and written commentary will be held in the public record. Today's meeting begins with a 15-minute public comment period. The public comment period is an opportunity for individuals to speak to the Active Transportation Committee on transportation-related issues. Each person will have 3 minutes to speak. If you are speaking, please give your name, city of residence, and for Eugene residents, your ward or neighborhood. We'll begin with those joining us online, of which we have none for public comment, but Misty is here online, so that's great. Let me share the screen real quick so we can get her. Yay, hi Misty. Doesn't look like we have anyone for public comment though, for online folks. So we can turn to those of you who are here in person. If anyone is hoping to speak, yeah, it sounds like we've got Connie.
Oh, I know. It seems like every time I come, I can say that we again think of persons who've been injured or passed away in the last couple of months, especially pedestrians in Eugene and Springfield. But on the other side of that, I often go down in the evening to Deb's downtown and ride my bike. And I have found the new 13th Street bikeway extremely helpful at night. More so than during the day or anything else. I can go, say, from the Alt Center, I go straight down Pearl, straight for me, straight down that, and it is so much safer than any alternative I had before. And so as a nighttime conveyance for cyclists, I think it's really works out really well.
And just to confirm, you said the 13th Street bikeway, you're referring to 13th, not High Street.
Right, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Just want to make sure I wasn't misunderstanding. Great. Thanks, Connie. I'm glad to hear that that's feeling good.
It makes a big difference of safety, especially when they're partying all around there.
Doesn't look like Noah or Rachel have anything to share. So, thank you. Okay, I'll pass it back to the, oh wait, I think I have, do I have more stuff on my introductory remarks? And with that, I'll hand it over to the chief. What I have written down.
Thank you, Willow. Our next agenda item is to approve the meeting notes from our April meeting. So, does anybody have any feedback, comments, or anyone motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, Brad, is there a second? Sue? All those in favor? Okay, so the meeting minutes from April have been approved. And then we'll move on to the High Street Bikeway opening. And Willow is gonna be our presenter for that.
Cool. So to preface tonight's meeting, May is Bike Month, which I'm sure most of you know. And what that means is that pretty much everyone in the transportation field is really busy in May. So although there were some ideas we had for things we could talk about tonight, we weren't able to secure any presenters besides me, who has to be here. So you may have noticed on the agenda that pretty much everything we're talking about tonight, I'm the presenter for. So we'll just kind of, I think we'll be able to have a pretty fluid conversation tonight. I've got a couple different things to bring to you all, and either you'll have a lot of feedback or we'll get through stuff kind of quick and perhaps end early. So we'll just kind of see what happens with the meeting tonight. So to open with the High Street Bikeway agenda item, as you maybe have heard / noticed, the High Street Bikeway is now officially open from the full extent, so it doesn't end at Broadway. It was a very long and arduous construction process with a lot of supply chain issues that made it last months and months and months longer than we were hoping and expecting. It was definitely a big burden on the biking community because it was like a primary northbound route for people who are living in south of town, or just trying to go northbound through downtown even. So anyway, we're feeling really happy that it's open. The engineer, when I was like, yay, it's done and open, he was like, it's definitely open. I would say it's 100% done. So you may notice as you're writing it, little things that are getting adjusted. One of the traffic engineers has been out there on an e-bike, like riding the corridor, testing the signals, going back and forth and trying to adjust things. As those of you who were in Eugene when 13th got installed, you may remember that it took a lot of time for the FLIR cameras, which are those cameras that detect the bikers, for us to calibrate them and get them well suited to the environment and to biking on 13th. So similar things happening on High. So that's kind of my preface to High. We are doing something that we didn't do with 13th, which is we're gonna run a survey about High Street that had kind of come as a recommendation from the ATC sort of, where I'd come to you, I think, last month or the month before saying High Street's gonna open soon. What do you all think? And you were like, let's try and continue the community engagement, get continued feedback from the community and really be engaging folks who are using it. One, to see how we could, you know, improve High Street, but two, to see how we could improve future bikeways, because we're going to continue to be building bikeways. So what can we learn from High Street for the design of future bikeways like on Lincoln or on Oakway, which are two that are already funded. So if you read your email, I think it was yesterday, I sent out the High Street survey, draft survey. So a coworker and I just like, this just came out of our brains. We just typed up whatever we could think of. So this is by no means like polished. You want to grab one and pass it down? I also printed copies for folks.
That's great, because it's not opening on my phone.
Yeah, I'm learning that printing enough copies for everyone is actually really instead of forcing you to share the same 2 pieces of paper. Doesn't really make sense. So I think tonight I want to have a discussion. Maybe perhaps, you know, is there anything in this survey that you feel like is missing? Any questions that you feel like are worded weird? Anything that you think we don't need to ask that's on here or is unnecessary or redundant? And then any broader things you want to talk about too, with just like what it looks like to evaluate a project after we do it, and other thoughts you have maybe about engaging. I'm curious to see that.
I just ask how it's going to be distributed. You know that yet?
Right now, I'm planning on getting a QR code and putting it on the bikeway. Yeah, so we'll probably maybe stick it onto a bollard or have some A-frames along the bikeway that's like, riding High Street Bikeway? Tell us what you think about High Street Bikeway. We'll probably also put it in motion in social media, maybe do a news release about it. But I think the most effective will probably just be to have it physically out there. Hopefully people scan the QR code.
Have we
Get
tried
the
that
link.
before? Do people do that?
People definitely scan QR codes.
No, I mean, like while they're riding a bike. And
Yeah, that's the thing is like, you're stopped at a stoplight or whatever, maybe you scan it real quick, put it in your pocket, have the link, get wherever you're going, maybe take the survey later.
I mean, have we ever done this before? Like,
Have we
I
done
like the idea. I'm thinking about myself being, oh, I'm maybe, and
Yeah.
just riding right past it.
For Move Huge, we put signs all along the path that had the QR code. for going in and doing the survey and stuff, and we heard from a lot of people that that's how they heard about the project. I think this could be helpful, because even if you don't scan the QR code in that
might
moment,
look at
you
it.
see that there's a High Street survey, there's a sign, so you can be like, oh, when I get to work or I get home or whatever, I can Google High Street survey City of Eugene
Yeah,
and pull it up without.
that does seem.
So it's like QR code, but also just the presence of the project, yeah.
So Willow, you're looking for feedback about the survey?
Yes. And feedback about just in general community engagement. I'm gonna grab a pen real quick, Charlotte.
So, first of all, a big thank you for doing this. And, as one of the hats I wear as an evaluator, I really appreciate that. So a couple things in terms of, survey design in general. It's easier for us as designers to do a bunch of open-ended questions, but it's much easier for respondents to respond to closed-ended. So I would reduce the number of open-ended questions, like 11 through 14, perhaps. Perhaps there's some ways to flesh that out a little bit. 15 is an example about, what do you think? Like, I'm seeing half a dozen adjectives there where people rated from really, so both positive and negative adjectives, and then they rate it from really, really great to not very much. And so it's not a strongly agree, disagree scale. I'm happy to talk about that more. Same with 8. I think you get more nuance if you make that a 5-point scale, you know, instead of a yes, no, maybe. And then my last inquiry is with number 1 about frequency. Do we care at all? Building on what Connie just said about appreciating at nighttime, do we care about time of use?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Covering a lot of the bases.
when I was on High Street the other day at 11, the signal's not working. Perhaps that's been figured out.
I
Do you
noticed
know
that.
when that was? Can you remember, or you-
Let's see, today's Thursday. I think it was actually a week ago.
okay. Okay, we've been hearing that 11th isn't working. We had some folks out there, then we heard it was working. But sounds like maybe it's not working. again.
Well, that was a week ago.
Yeah, but it might, I feel like it was before a week ago that I heard it was working, so maybe it's not working. Yeah.
You experienced it too, McKenna?
Yeah, there were 2 intersections. I didn't note which ones it were. I think it was 11th, but there were at least 2 that I sat for a long time. And then I just went because I wasn't.
It didn't
I was,
ever
yeah, I was never
yeah.
getting late, so.
Yeah.
A long time on 11th day. I didn't think it was gonna switch. And I felt like I missed a turn, sort of, you know, like it passed me by when it,
Yeah.
but I'm not sure. I haven't done it enough.
And that sort of brings up one of the comments I have, rather than, I mean, I think it'd be good to indicate, rather than, are the signals working for you, do you like them or whatever, it's like, give specific place, are there specific signals you're having problems? I mean, I hit a long light at 10th every time,
Yes.
and it's weird, because there never used to be any traffic coming out on 10th other than MX occasionally.
Mhm.
Now with Pearl and Oak screwed up, there's a little more traffic there, but it's like, it's a really long light and there's generally no cross traffic.
Mhm.
So that, it seems a little overkill.
Yeah, I think that the timing on 10th is really tricky because of the MX. I think there's some,
It's their bus priority.
yeah, some bus priority thing that causes that situation, but we can talk with this traffic signal engineers and just see like what is, you know, within those
Yeah.
con.
Well, and
constraints,
that
what the
sort of
flexibility is.
leads to something else I was thinking about, was that, I mean, I think among experienced bicyclists, there's a lot of frustration in High Street.
Mhm.
And I think you're gonna get a lot of complaints about things that you really can't change, either
Mhm.
because it's illegal to, or it's cost prohibitive, or whatever. And so I don't know how you would do it, but it'd be nice to let people know what's within the realm of possibility or something, because otherwise they'll give you their comments and then they'll say, the city doesn't give a rip, they didn't do anything about it, they, you know,
Yeah.
I told them this and they don't, you know, so that it just breeds that government can't do anything right sort of sentiment. So if there was some way to let them know what's possible and what isn't, you
Mhm.
know?
Like, we can't just make every light concurrent with the
Yeah,
cars, like,
yeah.
if we could, we would.
Well, or some of the signals are really old, so they're
Mhm.
dumb.
All the signals on High Street are old,
Yeah.
compared to 13.
Yeah.
Yeah. Looks like Misty has her hand raised, so I'm gonna go to Misty real quick and then we'll go back to here.
As a parent, I would appreciate like maybe some, a question about like, I feel my child is safe riding down the bikeway or using the bikeway. Yes, no, neutral.
And that's where it'd be great to have a scale.
Yeah.
And you could have a question, I'm sorry, I'm totally out of turn, but, you could have a question with different audiences, how safe do you feel? You know, 1 to 5, not at all to a very great deal, children with disabilities.
Family groups,
Mhm.
Yeah,
family groups go to the market.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Misty, because that is the idea of the bikeway, is that it's an all ages and abilities bikeway, so if you are a confident and experienced cyclist, it's not really built for you. Ideally, it does make you safer as well, but that's not who we had in mind when we designed it. So,
And also.
Right. I just don't, sorry, go ahead.
no, you can go, Misty.
Oh, I was just saying, I saw the one like, I feel safer now or something to that effect.
Hmm.
7. Or how safe do you feel now while using? And so I just want to emphasize I feel it's safe for my children, like to let
Right.
them go to school on their own, you know, versus me accompanying them.
Yeah.
Right, because kids aren't gonna be filling out this survey, so parents may be speaking on
Right.
behalf of them, so having a question that gets to that is a good idea.
Thank you.
Okay, McKenna, did you have your name tag tonight?
I feel like
Or was
Peter
it-
was first. to put his
Yeah.
card up.
And I think my
Sure.
question was out of scope anyways.
Okay, okay, Peter, wait, Peter, then Brad, then Sue. Okay.
Okay, having to do with the
I
survey,
was definitely.
Oh,
first,
Josh,
so-
I didn't see that either. Okay, Peter, then Josh, then Brad, then Sue. Okay.
this is a lot of questions, especially a lot of open-ended questions. So one thing that I saw best do that you might consider doing is have like the first 5 questions. And then you can either submit or like, hey, you want to answer more questions?
Yeah.
Just because, the first 5, at least at a glance, seem like the most important. And so having that option might be great. The other thing having to do with the actual signals themselves, I've had a 50-50 shot with getting the 18th signal to recognize my scooter. So if you could have the engineer try to ride it with scooters as well as bikes, the signals sometimes work better for one thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Angie, were you gonna say the same thing about
Having it split.
having it split?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, that's a cool one. Plus Misty's question, which definitely should be.
Yeah.
Okay, Josh, then Brad.
I guess mine's kind of specific, but Sue was talking and it came up, just it's a programming thing, maybe it's like, anyway, so I was riding 13th today and I don't know if I operates the same way, but I'm guessing it possibly does, the signals. There are moments I've been liking actually, right, that the bike and the car is not always the same time. People are having to train themselves, but makes perfect sense if there's turning.
Mhm.
That cars don't really look, and so separate, it's great, but sometimes there's a red pedestrian and a green bike.
Mhm.
And this actually, I mean, I guess the theory is bikes maybe will turn into pedestrians, but as a cyclist anyway, I feel much safer crossing intersections with bicyclists because cars will stop for for pedestrians, sorry. For pedestrians and more often than, I mean, obviously some of them. So I'm curious if that's just like how that decision gets made, because I feel like green for pedestrian and bike like makes a lot of sense. And it's like pretty weird. And most
Yeah,
people, I think,
noticed
also,
that too.
So that's how High Street is also, where the pedestrian phase and the driving phase are linked.
yeah.
And then the bike phase is separate from both the pedestrian phase and the driving phase. It does feel really counterintuitive, and it's kind of odd that it has to be that way. just to get into like the nitty gritty law around why that is the case. It is required by law that the pedestrian phases are a certain length based on the distance of the crossing. It has to be a certain amount of time for that pedestrian to make the crossing. So if we made the bike phase and the pedestrian phase concurrent, the bike phase would be really long, basically, and the driving phase would have to just sit there and wait, even though no one's, like, the bike would trigger the pedestrian signal, even if there wasn't a pedestrian, but it has to be a certain time. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm explaining it.
Yeah, not really, kind of. It
Uh,
makes sense that you have a rule that you've calculated.
Right, there's a rule that we calculate based on the distance that it would take a person to cross, and it's required for the signal to be, so if it's like a 10-foot crossing, I think it's, do you know, is it
2.5
2.5 seconds
feet
per
per
feet?
second.
So that would be, if it's a 10-foot crossing, it'd be a 25-second. Am I doing that right?
No.
No, it's not. I'm terrible.
But at any rate, so if it were just a bike signal, they could let the bike go and then.
And that's
be
how
done
it
with
is on High Street right
Whereas,
now.
whereas if you had it with the pedestrian, every time there was a bike, you'd have to have this prolonged time.
You have to have this
even if there
30
was
second,
Nobody.
even if there was no one trying to cross. So right now, the bike signal can be like 10 seconds long. Where if it triggered the pedestrian signal, it'd have to be 30 seconds long, and the bike would have gone through 20 seconds ago, and now everyone's just sitting there. So it's just really inefficient, and it causes a lot of delays in the system. One thing that we are looking into is when the bike phase turns on, if it's like that forward going phase for the drivers, it can start the pedestrian signal. And then the bike phase turns off, the people get to start driving, and the pedestrian signal has already started, if that makes sense. So it can kind of basically, the pedestrian signal goes through the bike phase and the driving phase. So that's one thing that
Yeah.
we're looking at, because so many people ask us about that. They're like, why does it say pedestrians can go and bikes can't, or bikes can go and pedestrians can't? That doesn't make
Yeah.
sense. It does make sense from an engineering perspective and from a legal perspective, but if we can make the pedestrian phase for both, that's something, and it's something we're looking into for High as well. So that's,
Yeah.
Seems like no one's gonna follow it anyway, like, I mean, that's like, I'm jaywalking, the bikes have a green light and I'm.
yeah,
like,
people who walk, oftentimes they look,
Yeah.
if no one's coming, they walk, like, you know, but.
People on bikes do too.
Bike-
And bikers do that too, yeah.
Like as a cyclist, sometimes if I see the walk signal, I think it's okay to go.
Yeah.
But then
Right.
you've got the cars coming at you.
Mhm.
But if there's,
Oh, I need to retrain myself. Like if there's a red bike, I look for that.
also
light.
cars are stopped for pedestrians, I'm gonna feel safer crossing on my bike than
Yeah.
even if
it's nice
it's,
to
even if
cross
it's a
with the
green light and a red light for cars, like,
Yeah.
there's just. Crossing in packs is safer.
Thanks for the comment. Hold Brad.
So first, how sensitive are the cameras? And then two, how confident are we that everybody knows how to be in the right spot or, those getting picked up? Everybody is, talking about being stuck there. I'm over there doing a dance on the corner trying to get, cause I think I'm doing something wrong, like I'm in the wrong spot or, whatever, to make those things work. So I don't know very much about them. So how do they, how sensitive are
So
they? Do you have to be in a certain spot?
I think the sensitivity is one of those things that can be adjusted. And it's one of those things that we kind of have to get dialed in. And I do know that one of the benefits of the camera is that you don't need to be in a perfect spot. Like, it's supposed to be able to see you no matter kind of where you're, like, if you're sitting in the general area, unlike the loops
The ones
that are,
yeah.
like, you have to stand
Yeah.
exactly on
Sure.
them. And most people don't know that.
What?
And then it moving.
Maybe I'm moving.
Sense you're coming, so. it's
Yeah,
screened by
and the
time-
camera is supposed to, yeah, the camera's also supposed to sense you coming so that it can turn green before you get there and then you don't have to stop. That does sometimes work on 13th if
Yeah.
there's not a lot of traffic, like if you're biking it at night. I love biking 13th at night also because you'll get the green wave and the cameras will just turn as you're riding, when there's no one else coming.
Right.
The light on the camera, it's red, but it's green sometimes, or is it?
So the camera is what's detecting you, but it doesn't have a light on it itself. Well, there's like a tiny little red
Little
light,
It's a little red light, doesn't
Yeah.
look green.
It doesn't
Some-
turn green or anything. Yeah.
Some of them have that blue light, but not on those streets.
Yeah, the blue
I
lights
mean,
are
where is
different.
that? They're like
The-
Lawrence
The
or
blue
whatever.
light is a totally different thing, and that's to indicate that you're standing in the right spot on the loop. It's saying you've been detected, and it's just trying to let you know.
Yeah, you're right, Monroe. Or is it Madison?
No,
It must be Lawrence. Okay. Monroe had like.
So let me,
Yeah.
that's a question I would need to ask the traffic engineers, is like, how sensitive are the cameras? But I know that it can be dialed in to be pretty sensitive, and it's the scooter thing that I'm wondering about too.
Or add skateboard to that. question.
Yeah, can they detect scooters and skateboards?
Rollerblades.
I know that the 13th one for a while had issues detecting groups of bike riders. So if you're in a group of like 4 or 5, it like got confused and wouldn't give you a light. So
You're a car.
us as the team, like
Get out at play.
we went out in a group ride and we would bunch all up, and then we had the traffic engineers at the boxes ready to sort of dial it in to us as a group. So sometimes there's things we can do where we can be like, oh, we've noticed that this has an issue. Let's go out and have someone write it while the traffic engineers there trying to get it dialed in. So that might be something we need to do with scooters or skateboards, is get one of our team out there riding it and the traffic engineers trying to dial it in. Sue.
Well, Lucy hasn't had a chance yet.
Lucy.
Oh, I guess for feedback on the form, I did, like the suggestion of limiting some of the open questions, like for number 4. What aspects of the High Street protected bike lane do you think could be improved? Maybe you could have like some categories.
Yeah.
Of like what, like to Sue's point of like what could be improved. Like what's possible, and then they could select that. And have like a, open,
Yeah, another category.
other category where they can just free type. So yeah, I think the survey looks great. Then, what was I gonna say, oh, the other feedback on High Street, just noticing that some of the ballers like are already getting like damaged. I'm sure you guys are aware of that. So yeah, that's my other feedback. Some of them are getting dented. But they're still there, so that's promising.
Yeah, they're kind of, when you hit those, they're a little reminder that you're not supposed to drive right there.
Yeah. That's really all I had. I was gonna
Thanks.
say the same thing about the lights, but we already talked about
Yeah, the pedestrian thing is strange.
it.
Sue.
Yeah, I'd say, again, having a shorter version of it would be good, because it is a pretty long survey. And also, you tend to get a lot of trash, I don't know what day trash day is in, like down around 17th or so, but it's been a bunch of trash thing, taking several trash things out of the bikeway. Anyway, you might want to ask, or do people have the same impression going south versus going north, or does it work better in
yeah.
one direction versus the other?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
And I was also
Yeah.
just wondering, how are you supposed to get, like, if you're on, like, around Fifth Street Market and you're heading south, how are you supposed to get onto the protected bikeway? It feels like.
Yeah, it's
there's a
really weird
pedestrian
there right
thing,
now.
but yeah.
Yeah.
There's nothing.
And they
same.
put one of those little like bike insignias on the pavement that usually go on top of loops, but there's no loop there, which is kind of funny. I don't know why that ended up there. I mean, it is basically telling you bikes can go here, but there's also that big right turn arrow. Is that the spot you're talking about
Right,
on
yeah.
Fifth, where there's a right turning arrow? So that spot is gonna get slightly adjusted. I think the plan is to put a little mini bike lane, just like a 5-foot bike lane. And then the turning lane, so that it at least indicates like this is a spot for bikes to wait, so they can just go straight, because you're supposed to just
Oh.
wait until you get the bike signal and then you go straight.
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
It's like there's a pedestrian.
But it just feels like a no man's land right
Yeah,
there
it's
right
just-
now. It's like there's
yeah.
a turning arrow and a little bike
Yeah.
insignia, and it's just unclear
Yeah.
whether you should be taking the lane or off to the side.
Mhm.
So I think the plan is to put a little mini bike lane, but I'm not sure why that's gonna happen.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
Is general feedback about High Street, is there any signage going northbound when when it stops being the 2-way and then it goes back over to the right side? To cause I saw yesterday there was a guy just going the wrong way
Oh.
and I was like, did
There's
he
no
miss that?
signage, but there is the dashed diagonal
Yeah.
that goes across the intersection, which I feel like is relatively clear.
Yeah,
I've seen 3 people do it wrong and nobody do it right.
Really?
I don't know why. It seems obvious to me,
Yeah, it does.
but a lot of
Yeah.
people are going the wrong way on the bike lane after.
Okay.
yeah.
So when we put 13th in, we put some temporary signs out when we were trying to do education about 13th. That was like, green bike signal means you can turn in any direction and things like that, just to get people to know about it. So maybe it would make sense for us to put a temporary educational sign
Mhm.
at that intersection that's like, if you're going north, take the diagonal crossing, just so people who it doesn't seem clear to know what to do.
It's pretty obvious.
Yeah, so that's interesting. Educational sign at diagonal crossing, question mark.
What intersection are we talking? I'm gonna be honest,
Seven.
I haven't
Yeah.
really ridden it, no, I've ridden it, I've ridden it
It's seven. It's seven.
like
Okay.
north and
The
south
other one I
on from
picked up,
13th
it's every-
in the other direction.
Yeah,
Where I live, my
Every
south,
single one.
right, it's like Lincoln is my way to be from,
yeah.
I go all the way to High.
I would say from 8th to 19th, it's very straightforward. From 8th to 5th, it's a little funky.
Yeah.
And especially once you get to 5th, it's kind of just like, figure it
No man's
out.
land.
So
So it's
we
kind
know
of
that
like-
that railroad crossing where the high street just kind of ends and there's a railroad crossing, getting onto 5th is tricky, like
Yeah.
that totally needs a redesign and we're aware of that and it's part of the railroad quiet zone project, which is stuck in contracting, I'm not sure, but it is identified and we know we need to fix it.
Yeah, down 13th to 24th.
Yeah, that section is pretty solid. Okay,
That's my
Alan,
comment.
yes.
Okay, one question that I think would be helpful is to find out whether people are using this route for the first time or using the route more than they used to.
That's, yeah.
Okay, so I have the question about if they feel safer than they used to. We could
That's
also
good, that's good.
ask a similar question, like, are you using it more than?
Yeah.
Yeah, or has this prompted you to ride when you weren't likely to before? That's really useful information. If
Mhm.
people actually become a rider as a result of it.
Which is the goal of building that triple
Yeah.
A, all ages and
Yeah.
abilities network, is to encourage
Exactly.
people who might not have chosen to ride.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it seems like you might need to do more outreach, because the people I've seen on it so far are almost exclusively people who probably were riding it before. So I don't know that the people who need the extra protection, I'm not sure they're on it yet, so they might not be able to see the survey or know about it.
Well, and that speaks a little bit to about when the survey is done, we might get different kinds of results.
Yeah.
Because it's still really quite new. And so the people who are most likely to use it are the people who've been waiting for it for a long time. And I just like on 13th, it's taken some time for people to become familiar with that it exists and how to use it.
And like biking season for
Yeah.
people who are seasonal bikers hasn't quite started yet. We're like
Right.
right at the edge. So I think I have intentions of hopefully running this survey in the summertime.
Yeah,
When it's like, maybe there will be more families and people
Mhm.
out on it and people who are more fair weather bikers using it, so we can really get that understanding. So yeah, I like the idea of asking if it's prompted anyone to ride more, or ride when they maybe would have previously chosen not to.
and my other, sorry, I'm just giving you like nitpicky things about the survey.
No, that's great, no problem.
But when you ask more than one question within a question, it's hard to know how to answer it. So
Uh-huh.
for example, how safe do you feel walking, biking and rolling on High Street before? Well, I might feel comfortable walking, but not biking. So that would be, if that were the case, then it would be difficult to know how to respond to it.
Do you feel like using Bike Street, like how safe did you feel using High Street before the protected bikeway would?
It depends how granular of information you want to gather.
Right.
And you're always weighing that against whether you're actually gonna get the information because you start making a longer and longer survey, so.
Yeah,
I,
but that's a good point, that walking, biking and rolling are.
yeah, and the same is true on the other side when you talk about accessibility. Like, does it help you access all those places? Well, maybe some of them, but not other ones.
Okay,
So if you just have, even if you have a scale there, you're not gonna get the fine grained information that might be helpful. But everyone, for example, is saying, yes, it's helped, get downtown, but no, it hasn't helped me get to the river.
right. Okay,
I wanna say thank you again, Willa, for bringing this to us, because I think this is the kind of thing
Yes.
we used to encounter, I used to encounter, and go like, why didn't anybody ask us about this? Because this is not, you know what I mean? Like, it's really good to
Yeah.
get sort of a group think, you know, and,
well, I feel like the ATC for surveys, it's really helpful because you all are out there and you can think, you can think beyond like us sometimes stuck in planner mode. And
I
go
would think the
through-
same thing for signage, because sometimes I see signage, it's like. Why they say it like that?
Cool, how are we doing on time, Lucy? Are we wrapping this guy up or?
6:10, we have 4 more minutes.
Any last thoughts on High Street or post-project engagement?
You know, I do have one too.
Okay. Okay, we'll go Peter, then Josh, then Sue.
This project was kind of promised as all ages ability to the river. Doesn't quite go to the river.
Uh-huh.
And I know the railroad will get better, but that's not the whole way. Are there any plans to make an all ages and abilities bikeway
Are
to
you
the
thinking
river?
it needs to go to Fourth in order to get to the river? Is
Yeah.
that the idea? Cause I think that Fifth
Or-
Street where the railroad is, you're supposed to be able to turn right into the river path.
Okay.
Or
So you're not going
so you're not going all the way to Fourth and then over, you're like, I think when that gets redesigned, that's supposed to be the entrance to the riverfront, like neighborhood
Okay.
is right there at Fifth. So it's like the Fifth Street Market and the riverfront neighborhood meet right there. And it's supposed to, ultimately, it's supposed to be this big like
Okay.
combination, and that's where all the bikers and walkers are supposed to go. So that's part of that vision. But yeah, basically from where it ends at 6 to get to Fourth, like that's just, it kind of just disappears and there's not much happening there yet. So that's kind of the like last piece of the Ridges to Rivers vision that has been going on for like 20+ years.
And that's in the railroad quiet.
The railroad quiet zone will fix that where we're expecting people to go like into the riverfront neighborhood. It won't go all the way to Fourth. So that's where there's still conversation and potentially options for my team to pursue. And I wish Reed was here because I think there are things stirring, but I don't know what the specifics are. So let me write that down. I can see if I can chat with Reed about what's next for connecting High to the river. And maybe I can come back with more specifics. Okay, Josh.
Yeah, I'll be quick. We were talking about opportunities for like group rides and things, and doesn't this seem like one? That's all I, like, it's like, hey, staff, you wanna go on a ride and look at those signals and explain them to us? That seems like an opportunity.
Okay, cool. Sue, did you have last thing?
I was just wondering, do you know when Oak and Pearl are supposed to be finished? Because that might affect traffic, auto traffic on High Street. Hopefully they'll go back to Oak where they belong, so.
The
it
goal is
might-
for Oak and Pearl to be done in the end of July.
Okay, so you might have some time to do the survey after traffic patterns change a little bit.
Yeah, and I think the nice thing about this survey is that we're not up against any sort of deadline or anything. It's just for us to learn from, so we could also launch it, get some feedback, maybe even launch it again in August or something to sort of capture a different demographic, so.
When they close the Amazon path.
Right, yeah. Always something these
Yeah.
days. Okay. Okay, I think that's it with High Street.
There were a couple more.
Were there?
Charlotte,
Were there
both
couple
look like they
more?
want it.
Sorry.
Angie hasn't
Yeah,
talked at
wow,
all,
I just
so-
didn't even see those. Okay, Angie, then Charlotte.
Oh, I just wanted to add about by the river. I like live by like in Harlow, so when I come on like the river path into downtown, I'm like spit out onto Fourth. And I don't ride very often, like from my apartment, but I ride like around downtown. So the first time I went, I got really confused, and the person that was biking in front of me also got confused, and we both turned the wrong way and had to turn around and then go. And so maybe I'm thinking some like temporary signs to like guide, because there's also a lot of construction happening there that's taking up a lot of road space. So it's a little scary for someone like that aren't very protected. So maybe that's something that could happen.
Okay. Yeah, if you and I wanna like zoom in and get more specific exactly where you're talking, I'd be interested.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Sure.
Quickly, you have these great questions here on, item number 4 about High Street, like how do we unveil new projects? And, do troubleshooting with, community engagement. Those both seem like conversation topics we haven't really yet touched. We've talked a little bit about the form, we've talked a little bit about our reactions to the actual project. So I'd like to request that those are two things I think we could be real helpful with, that we carry those 2 questions forward, because they're not High Street specific.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I had those on there because I wasn't sure if I'd have this survey draft ready yet. So I was kind of like, well, if I don't have the survey draft ready, we could have that broader conversation. So I'm glad that those questions feel relevant. When she said number 4, she was talking about on the agenda, not on the survey.
Oh, thank you for that clarification.
So revisit agenda questions. The unveiling of new projects is really tricky because on High, we thought it was gonna be done in October. And so we had this whole thing planned, and then it was not even close to done, so. Now that it's open, we're kind of like, okay, well, how do we get people excited about it, even though it's months and months after what we were expecting? Okay.
Well, yeah, I was just trying to visualize the area where it connects to the river path. Most of High Street is on the Google Maps bicycling layer now, so.
That's nice.
Yeah, there's still a couple dotted lines like.
Yeah, I have noticed if I go on Google Maps and I type in directions, Google Maps doesn't know that High Street is southbound. So it still takes me to Pearl, so I've been thinking to myself, like, how do I get Google to know that when they're doing biking directions that High is southbound as well, because it still is taking, it's like telling me to take Willamette or Pearl. I don't want to tell people to take Pearl, because Pearl is like not where bikers should be right now, it is chaos, yeah.
Pothole land.
Yeah.
Although if you can get around all the construction, it's a piece of cake because there's no traffic.
Okay, so our next agenda item is for the ATC Google Drive. We've reorganized it, or Peter reorganized it for the committee, and we wanted to do a brief tutorial on how things are organized, how to find documents, et cetera. So.
Well, could you pull that up? And then. Could I just use your computer to demo this?
Sure.
Okay. Sweet. Is there? Sweet. I need to get these.
The way I have it set up is this is the mouse, but it'll be looking at that.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I have the link in here.
Yeah, that's the thing.
I might turn the light up.
Yes. So there's 3 folders. There's ATC contact info and roster, so if you need to contact someone else in the committee, that's a great place to find that. There's material organized by committee date, so for example, if we pull that up, you'll find, and then you just go to the year, be like May, we haven't made this year, this month's folder, but the idea is if you wanted to find all the things for this month, you would go to 2024 May. So let's just go to April here. So go to the.
How did you get to the screen that you started from? Because that's.
Oh, yes.
It's not-
Okay.
that's
I
not
have it
what see when I-
bookmarked, so I just
oh.
went to it.
Yeah, so this one here, the ATC Eugene, you have to find a link, or if it's been shared with you, you can go to the shared with me folder and you can find it there. And then there should be a way to, this is different than my computer.
Is it shared with all of us? Cause
Yeah,
that could be done.
Can you?
It
Yeah.
should be shared with everyone.
And then what I recommend is the first time you open it up, I'll go back to this. You click on this folder, you go to organize, and then either add a shortcut or add to start, and that way you can always find it. So if you add the shortcut,
Sorry, my mouse pad is terrible.
it's all right, there you go. So I recommend you just add it to your drive. So just go to my drive and then just add it here. And then that way, when you open up Google Drive and go to my drive, if you have a bunch of Google Docs, you can organize it however you wish. But if you don't use Google Drive often, just add it to your drive. And then I don't really want to go through all your stuff.
This is my work account, so
Oh,
it's
okay.
very.
Yeah. So then if you just
work-related.
go to your front page, yeah. Okay. If you just go to your front page, then ATC Eugene will always be there. So once again, you go to ATC Eugene, go to organize, and then add a shortcut to wherever you want. Just going to My Drive is probably the best bet.
You
So
could
that
click
way-
add,
Yeah.
I've actually, that'd
Okay.
be helpful if it were.
Yeah. So then you go, whenever you go to your front page, you'll just see a little folder here that says ATC Eugene.
Nice. That's great.
And that's the best way to be able to access this without having to go through your emails every time to get to this. All right, so
The
then,
other place that you could find it, since I believe it has been shared with you all, is if you, on the left, you see that shared with me. If you go to that, it should be in a recent, in a recent shared with you.
yeah. Yeah, so ideally it would be here. Oh, you got a lot of folders.
Yeah, mine was, it was shared with me years ago at this point, so.
Got it, yeah. So add a shortcut, put it on your My Drive, and then it'll be easy to get to. So ideally, as things get added to their folder, so let's go back to April, so that was last month's. If something really applies to a certain topic, we can add it to that topic. So downtown Eugene, for example, you can add a shortcut. So you can have, what's cool about Google Drive is you can have multiple copies of the same file in different places. So you can organize things in multiple ways at once. So here it's only organized by when we talked about it in ATC, but we can also organize it by the topic. So if we go back to our front page, ATC Eugene, we can have materials organized by topic. So for example, we can have all our Move Use projects. Anytime we talk about anything related to Move Huge, we can put it in this topic folder. Anytime we talk about anything related to bike share, we can put it here. Anytime we talk about greenways, put it here. So the idea is 4 years from now, when we're talking about greenways from now, again, we can come to this topic and see all the times that ATC has talked about greenways, so we don't repeat the same things. We can see, yeah. So the whole goal with this Google Drive is that we don't have to repeat ourselves year after year because people come in, people go out. And, it'd be nice to be able to just have one place where we can see everything that ATC has talked about with bike share. One place where we can see everything that ATC has talked about with greenways and so on. Yep.
So Peter, you're saying it's sort of cross-reference. So say, for example, last month we talked about climate stuff. And I think there's something in April 24. You're saying it could also be in the topics folder on a subfolder called climate. And do we, so we can have it, and do we have editorial privileges, or it's all just view? And how does that work if I got multiple files the same name in different places?
So to get to the first question of whether you can edit, yeah, I believe everyone here has editing privileges.
Okay.
The way that Google Drive organizes it is that there's one place where the actual file is. And so in this case, that would be under that month's April 2024. And then everything else is referred to as a shortcut to that file. So in the same way that maybe you've added a shortcut to your desktop on your computer, Google Drive does that. So the idea would be that the topic organization would all be shortcuts that would.
Back to the given meeting that we talked about.
But we don't have to understand that. in
No,
terms of
the only
backend.
person who has to understand that is the person who's organizing it, which I will try to be the person to do that. Maybe we can work on that.
Yeah, that sounds
Yeah.
good.
Thank you.
I'll just try and get stuff that we talked about into the folder at
Yes,
least. Yeah.
there we go. And then I can go from there.
Okay.
I honestly don't think I have a link to the folder.
Yeah, if anyone doesn't have a link, I can reshare it.
Yeah.
In fact, I might just copy and paste everyone's email and just share it one more time, just so it's, now that we've talked about it, it's at the top of your inbox.
Yeah, and then so once again, the main thing I want you to know today is when you pull it up, go to organize, add a shortcut, and add it to your drive. So,
All locations, my drive.
yeah,
That's
which-
great.
Cool.
It's 6:20. Any other questions?
It is 6:20. I wanted to add that I think we have a folder for subcommittees too.
Yes.
So when we're like discussing things in our subcommittees, we can document those and put them on these folders too.
Yeah. So put subcommittee information.
So, yeah, good to organize them. Thanks.
Yep.
And
you.
when we
Thanks
have,
a lot.
when we have presentations, like you saw in the April folder, I pulled in the presentations from the
Yeah.
PDD, the planning folks who came, so I'll do my best to try and get presentations into the folder so that they're referenceable.
Good.
for you.
Great.
Okay.
We might have to have a
Yeah.
remedial class too, but.
Yeah, no, that was pretty quick. Yeah.
Cool, well, the next agenda item is our break for a 5-minute break. So we'll come back after 5 minutes and resume the meeting. Great, thank you. Stand up.
You're gonna lead us?
let's go over the next agenda item, which is construction in downtown Eugene and 2024 projects. So what construction projects are happening this year? Willow will be also presenting that one. And we can't wait to hear it, why there's so much construction.
Yeah, so let me show tonight. Okay, so I've been doing a lot of communications about construction in downtown Eugene, and during our co-chair and Willow meeting, we were like, maybe we should talk to the ATC about construction in downtown Eugene, just so you all have the talking points and know what's going on, and when people are complaining about it, you could offer insight. So downtown Eugene's been a bit of a mess. It was a mess last summer. It's a mess this spring and probably will be a little bit into the summer. The primary reason why it feels like so much is happening in downtown all at once is that, as you all remember, when the pandemic hit, the supply chain got all messed up, things got really, really expensive. Like when lumber was like $55 a square yard, and then it's come way back down. The same thing happened with like everything, with striping, with steel, with asphalt, with everything. And so High Street, which was supposed to be built in 2020, we didn't build it in 2020, mostly just because the pandemic hit, and so everything got stalled. And then in 2021 and in 2022, it was coming in like double or triple the money we had. So there was just no way for us to build it. We just had to wait until costs came back down. So once costs came back down, and now we're on the hook for our bond money, we're required to be spending stuff within a certain time. So now everything got compressed. So that's why there's these projects it just feels like 8th is happening, High Street happened, Pearl happened, Oak happened. It's like so much is happening all at once. It wasn't supposed to be like that, but that's just the situation that we got put into. So the project managers are doing their very best to coordinate with each other, have the construction companies coordinate with each other so that closures don't happen at the same time. If you were in downtown last week, there were a couple closures that happened at the same time that created like a Bermuda Triangle in downtown. We're just getting like trapped in detours that fed into other detours that brought them back to where they started, which is funny now, but at the time, if that was happening to you, you were stuck downtown for 45 minutes in your car. Like people were really mad, and that is totally legitimate for them to be upset about that. Like it's one thing to have a detour that delays you by 10 minutes. It's another thing to be caught in a Bermuda Triangle. So we like, with so many projects happening downtown, it can be really hard to coordinate. The city definitely learned from that experience. It was like, wow, that was not supposed to happen, and it did. And we don't want that to happen again. So now the project managers are really sort of making an extra concerted effort. 8th Avenue was supposed to have closures this week. They postponed those closures to next week so that Pearl closure could get wrapped up. So Pearl Street is getting repaved this year. It was not supposed to have any full closures. It was only supposed to have a single lane closure so that it was always able to be open. The contractors found pea gravel from the 1940s underneath the road surface, which is really, as you can imagine, slippery. So when they tried to close a single lane as cars were driving by, it was underfilling and basically threatening the structural integrity of the street. So they were like, we cannot remedy this without doing a full closure on Pearl between Broadway and 10th. So last week we closed Pearl completely from Broadway to 10th, which caused a huge snarl in downtown. That was planned to be closed for 3 weeks, which was very concerning, but they were able to reopen in 8 days. So Brett, the project manager, and then Wildish, the contracting company, really busted themselves to make it a lot shorter time. And it's honestly a really big accomplishment that they went from a 20-day closure to an 8-day closure. It's really exciting. So now it's back open as of yesterday, or I think Tuesday. So anyway, lots of things happening. The pea gravel is actually kind of interesting. That was the standard in the 40s, was to kind of just get it in there and then close it up and don't worry about it. And now that we're in 2024, we don't use pea gravel. We use this jagged aggregate that sits together a lot more and it has a lot better structure. So we did get some pictures of the 1940s pea gravel, if anyone wants to see. It looks like round rock. What else do I want to say? On Pearl, and this is actually true for pretty much most of the paving projects that are happening. The city's new standard is to add bump outs or curb extensions to areas where we're expecting there to be a high count of pedestrians, people walking and rolling, and bikers. So on Pearl and on Oak, there are bump outs being installed. And if you're not familiar with what a bump out is, it's where the curb that has the pedestrian access ramp juts out into the street, where oftentimes there's street parking. So instead of the curb ending at the edge of the car, like at the curb side of the cars, it ends at the street side of the cars. So the curb kind of juts out into the street, and what it does is it shortens the pedestrian crossing and gets you further out and more visible, so that when you're crossing, people can see you better. It's our new standard. So Pearl and Oak are getting bump outs at 12th, 15th, and 17th, which are all neighborhood greenways. So if it's on a neighborhood greenway, it's usually identified as a place that would be a good candidate for a bump out. Now on Pearl, it was supposed to get bump outs on both sides when we were thinking of removing the bike lane on Pearl, but since we decided to keep the bike lane, it's only getting bump outs on the east side. The west side is remaining like a flat surface because the bike lane is moving from the east side to the west side of Pearl. So that's like from the left side of the road to the right side of the road.
Isn't the
Oh,
idea for
that's
bump
great.
outs to also slow the traffic that's turning?
Yeah, thanks for adding that. The other purpose of the bump outs is to
Okay.
slow the traffic that's
Yeah,
turning.
cool.
So when it's like a shallow turn, you can kind of keep your speed and make that turn, but when it's a sharper turn, you have to slow way down and really like make your turn.
Mhm.
I saw a huge Ford Dodge 250, whatever it is, Ford Dodge, you know those, make that turn successfully. Did not go out of their lane. They had to slow way down, but they were able to turn on a bump out successfully. So they are designed for large vehicles to use. It's not like they are too
Mhm.
small. Like if you slow down enough, a large vehicle can make that turn.
But will the Cybertruck make it?
So that's the situation with downtown construction. I mean, I could keep talking about it. There's 8th, which I haven't even really touched on, that I have updates about. I don't know if you want me to keep going here.
Well, is 8th on schedule? It seems like it's been going on forever.
8th is on schedule. So 8th was
It's so
Eighth-
awesome what they're doing now.
8th was originally designed to be a 3-phase project. Phase 1 started in spring of last year, phase 2 was summer of last year, and now we're in phase 3. So it's on schedule as planned, but it is just a big project with like significant changes.
And making it as two-way, it's like the cool, we should
Yeah.
be doing that everywhere.
I know, right?
So when's it supposed to be completed?
It's supposed to be completed by the end of summer, if not earlier. Rachel, who's the project manager, Rachel Love, said we're on track for it to be fully paved and striped by the end of May. That means the protected bike lanes that are going in still need to be constructed, but the paving and striping will be done. And then we need to work on the signals, get the protected bike lanes in, and then we'll be open to two-way traffic from Lincoln to Mill. So for the entire downtown stretch, which is gonna be really, really cool. Yeah, Charlotte.
You mentioned a new standard of bump outs. Thank you. Yay. Are there other elements of your standard that you might educate us on? I'm thinking particularly pedestrian stripes near a bump out, so there's a crosswalk, even without signals, just some paint on the road.
I am pretty sure that the bump outs include striping for the crosswalks.
Wonderful.
I don't know that for sure, though. I'd have to check our complete streets guide, which anyone is welcome to look
I
at.
don't think, like on Broadway where there's one at Jefferson, I don't think.
This might be.
There's
Is there
there's
one
no-
at
there's
the
a striped
intersection by
crosswalk.
the farmer's market?
What's
I
that?
think so. By the
Yeah.
farmer's
Might
market
depend on
pavilion?
the roadway classification.
So I will just mention, this is our complete streets design standards. This is technically a draft and is going to be adopted this fall. I believe that Reed is planning to come talk to you within the next couple of months about this a little bit more in depth, but if anyone does want to look at it, it actually is pretty readable. It's not like just crazy government jargon. It's got like really nice NACTO pictures that kind of outline what the different street classifications are. And that's how this Complete Streets Design Guide is it's like there's these street types, and we've identified in Eugene what type of street anything is, and then over time as we do projects, trying to build that street up to the standard that is outlined in the Complete Streets Guide. So if you wanted to go look at what a commercial main street should look like, you could learn about, you know, who it's designed for and what it should look like and what our standards are.
So we can Google like Complete Street.
Yeah, I typed in Complete Streets Eugene and it was the first thing on Google, but also I've been to this page before. So maybe Google's like doing an algorithm thing, I don't know. I could send this out.
But there isn't anything to retrofit streets to that, it's just.
No, it's as projects and yeah, it's hard because the paving bond measure does not include funding to bring the street up to standard. So we're able to sneak in some of the bump out stuff, but it's not like we can just start adding protected bike lanes to everything, even though our guide says that that's the ideal, because we just don't have funding to do that to every paving project. So I think we still have a little bit of time on this agenda item.
Yeah.
Peter has a question.
Oh, yeah.
Are there any funding, like mechanisms for the temporary bump outs, like the plastic post bump outs that I see somewhere, like I'm thinking Broadway and is it Washington or Jefferson? One of them is one way, one of them is the other.
Mhm.
Just for the places that don't have paving projects, but
Like are in need of.
11th and Willamette is what I always think of when I think of that. Yeah, is there funding somewhere to do those sort of?
So the city has some, what we call quick build funding, that we got through a grant, so it's not really ongoing funding, it's sort of a one-time thing, and it's all spoken for a single project this year, which we are planning to come and talk to you about, because it's in the very nascent stages. So I guess the short answer is kind of no, not really, but my team does know that quick build, some people call it like more like tactical urbanism, or demo projects is another name. It's called kind of all the same thing, usually flexible bollards and paint. Is something that my team is pretty interested in and wants to continue to pursue when great opportunities come up to do the quick build stuff, because it can make a really big difference for pretty cheap and pretty fast.
That would make a good agenda item, you know.
And we've wanted to talk about quick builds
We
before.
had it on the agenda once. but
We had it,
was-
Logan came and chatted about it, but Logan was like, we've got money, it's for this thing.
Especially if somebody on the committee has something they wanna say, you know, let's shine a light on this place that needs this thing. You know, we could give a recommendation specifically.
Well, I think Liv has been working on some,
Mhm.
we have a toolkit of some kind, I haven't seen what it is, but I think they're doing something that would be.
Angie might
They're
know.
gonna be ready at, they're gonna be at the block party.
Yeah.
Yeah, the block party.
Okay, go ahead.
This is the 2024 construction projects list. So this is something that I worked with the project managers to put together, and it's a list of all the projects that are gonna get built and or go out to bid this year. So these squares, January through March, April through June, etc., are when the project kind of starts, and that starting point is when it goes out to bid. So some of these ones, like this one that you see in 10-12, that's not going to go to bid until the end of the year, which means it's kind of more going to get built in 2025.
And who to complain to.
What's that?
It also has a who to complain to.
Yeah, yeah, and then there's the project manager listed here. So you can see the 8th Avenue streetscape is on, like, it's continuing from last year and it's planned to be done by the end of September. So this is a little helpful because it kind of also shows when we're hoping to have things be finished. All of these projects, with the exception of, I think, just like a couple that are at the very end of the year, have info sheets on the website. So there's a name here, but then you can go onto the current projects page on the website and actually pull up an info sheet that says, what is this project? What does it include? If you wanted to learn more about any given project. So like Maxwell Road and Prairie Road improvements, even though it's at the end of the year, I just put an info sheet up about this yesterday, and it's a Move Huge project that's adding sidewalks and bike lanes to Maxwell Road and Prairie Road, which is like kind of a really big deal, because that area, there's a lot of people who walk and bike and there's no facilities whatsoever. So it's not like it's the best facilities ever. It's not a AAA, all ages and abilities bike lane, but it's a striped bike lane, which is a huge upgrade from nothing. Yeah, exactly. Like tiny little shoulder with just nothing and giant trucks driving by and stuff. So,
Is this document on the Google Drive?
I am going to put it into the May folder.
Great.
Because I imagine you all probably want to take take the
Yes.
time to look at it and sort of correspond it with the info sheets.
So you just, can you just click on that to get to the info sheet?
No, I'm not that sophisticated.
That's right.
On the current projects page though, which I could show you.
Impressive list.
Will, how does this like move huge spreadsheet?
That's a good question. So some of these, so for the most part, these projects are pavement bond funded from the previous bond. Because we're not quite in the new bond window yet. That's gonna more start next year, and then the year after that is when we'll really be in the full swing of that bond. So this is more from the 2017 bond. We're in the final year of that bond. So
Most of these are on that list you gave us.
I think most of them are on the list for 2024 that I gave you. Some of these, however, are Move Huge. And those were identified because there was potentially a project from 2017 that from the 2017 bond, that there's another project maybe nearby, and it just made sense to combine them. Like, for example, there's the Bailey Lane, Van Lane, and Luella. I think Bailey was scheduled for repaving from the 2017 bond, Van and Luella were from the 2022 bond. And so we were like, let's just do that project at once. So we only have to disrupt that neighborhood one time instead of coming back in a couple of years and disrupting them again. So there's a few opportunities for us to bring in bond funding, but for the most part, it's the old bond.
The City of Eugene signal improvements. What's that?
I think it's just updating a few old things, signals, and I think, okay, so this is, sorry, I'm going fast.
Right.
This is the current projects page. If you haven't been here before, this is where the project managers and I work on making sure that there's an info sheet for any project that is under construction or going to be under construction soon. So on here, there's also the current projects map, which isn't quite updated yet, but the GIS team's working on it right now because we're rolling into construction season. So you can click on it to see the project spatially across the city. And then there's the roadwork traffic advisories page that you can link to from here as well. And that's where you can see weekly updates about road work. So every week you could look at it and be like, oh, this street's closed and this street's gonna have this thing. So the project managers submit that every single week and it gets posted on Fridays. If you scroll down, here's the 2024 Public Works projects. And we have it in categories. So this is transportation projects. This is any project that's adding something more interesting than just repaving. So if it's a paving project, it's going to be down here under paving projects. If it's a transportation project, it's adding something additional or something that has to do with maybe walking, biking, or safety. So like the Chambers Street lighting improvement, it's mostly just lighting, but it's kind of a transportation project because it's a safety oriented project. So you can click on these, like the Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard Transit and Safety Project is on this spreadsheet. So here's the MLK Jr. Transit and Safety Project. So you'll be like, oh, I want to learn more about that. So you can go to the current projects page and click on the info sheet. Oh, I'm in editing mode. That's funny. I can't click on anything right now because I'm editing the website. Turn this on. I'll do that. I was just updating info sheets today. Okay, so I think when I click on this now, it should take me to the info sheet. So project description, project scope, estimated construction schedule and completion date, expected travel impacts, how it was funded, and who to contact about the project. So that is on there for all of these projects.
Oh, nice.
Yes. So you can learn more, and then here's all the paving projects. Like I said, the main thing that paving projects adds that isn't just paving is the bump outs to areas where we're expecting to see high pedestrian and bike counts. I think that's what I've got for 2024. Questions or comments or anything?
Right, right on schedule for our next.
Well, if anybody's interested,
Agenda
Reed
item.
is tentatively planning on coming to the next infrastructure committee meeting. So if you want to get more details on some of the upcoming projects, that'd be a good opportunity.
And Reed's probably gonna be talking about 2025 projects.
We haven't specified, we had some
Okay.
questions for him about some of the 2024 ones, and
Okay.
I told you to get your questions ready for the other projects too.
Uh-huh.
We got Reed coming.
Yeah, it's kind of lucky to get Reed.
That's gonna be, I think, tentatively scheduled on May 30th, I think.
Okay. Maybe if you wanted to send that out to the whole ATC, just as an opportunity in case people are interested.
So our next agenda item is how do projects get chosen and funded? And there's gonna be a brief presentation by, you guessed
I
it.
know I'm like getting thirsty from all the stuff.
Yeah.
So a couple years ago, or not a couple years ago, I think it was just about a year ago. This question had come up, how do projects get chosen and funded? And Rob came and gave a presentation about how projects get chosen and funded. And he stayed pretty high level because it is pretty high level. It's like, there's just a lot of things that happen that result in this. So it's not that complicated. So I was like, well, we have new members. The ATC chairs were like, people are interested in this. I was like, I could give this presentation. I don't need to have Rob come. So basically I have his presentation from a couple years ago that I figured I could go through and just kind of explain what he had explained, and it's useful information, it's good to know. But the main things that the ATC is asked is, how does the city decide on projects? How do projects get funded? And then the why now question, like, why are things getting built now? How is that timeline of construction decided? So there are some ways that projects are identified early on in sort of large planning processes. So we have the transportation system plan, which was, you know, a multi-year process and has existed for a while, and we're just slowly ticking projects off as they get built. The transportation system plan is not a commitment by the city to say we will build these things. It's a plan that says these things all would be cool, right? Like, we would like to see these built, they would support our mission, but it's not a commitment to build them. There's also some regional priorities. So the city of Eugene is its own standalone city, but it is within Lane County and it shares much of its population and economy with Springfield. So sometimes there's some regional priorities that happen, such as Franklin Boulevard, which goes from Eugene through Glenwood and into Springfield. So sort of trying to complete that corridor overall is a regional priority. And that's why Franklin Boulevard was sort of lifted up, even though, you know, the universities had quite a bit of investment. Investing more in Franklin Boulevard makes sense from a regional perspective. And then the third project identification is the Safe Routes to School program, which Brad knows a lot about as a coordinator. So the Safe Routes to School program coordinators often have their pulse on what's happening at the schools, and they even have a whole prioritization matrix and prioritization process that they go through where they identify projects and then they work with the city to get funding and design and actually implement projects that are designed for the schools. So that's the project identification, and then it kind of bleeds into the project prioritization. So it's like there's all these projects, all of them are needed, all of them are a good idea. How do we choose which ones to do? So there are different matrices that we use. Yeah.
Can I go back? Where, how, is Vision Zero on the list for project identification?
Vision Zero is on the list for project identification. I'm not sure how it is sort of built into these, though. I would have to ask Logan.
Okay.
It's almost like, in some ways, Vision Zero is, I get the fourth category, because it kind of has its own grant opportunities and its own identified locations. That's a good question. So the Safe Routes to School matrix, I think this is a little screenshot, and it's not meant for you to read it. It's just meant for you to see that there are complicated spreadsheets that are behind these decisions that kind of look at all these different criteria and then rank projects based on the criteria. So we did a similar thing for Move Huge, where we had all these criteria that you all had given us feedback on, and then we used that criteria to prioritize projects. So, and then on there again is the regional priorities. Sometimes there's just something that just rises to the top based on the region. So we have project lists, we put them through matrices, we get project prioritization, and then we need to figure out how to fund them. There's kind of three main funding buckets. There's City of Eugene funds, there's MPO funds or Metropolitan Planning Organization, and then there's competitive grants. So, oh yeah, I'm ahead of myself. The City of Eugene funds buy like a huge margin. The road bond is where that money comes from, like by a ton. It's like 90% of the City of Eugene funds for transportation projects is from the road bond. And then we get a little sprinkle of gas tax money and system development charges, which is what SDCs stands for. System development charges are just when someone's doing development, there's a little bit scraped off the top that goes towards different projects. There's park system development charges, there's wastewater system, like there's a bunch of different ones, and this is the transportation system development charge.
The road bond dollars, are those like local, or they come from the state? Or
The road bond is that transportation pavement bond that the citizens of Eugene vote on.
Okay.
And it's a 5-year bond, and the citizens of Eugene or residents of Eugene just approved or voted for the third version of that. So I think the first one was in 2008. They voted yes, and then we had another one. I don't know.
What's the fourth one?
Oh, this is the fourth one? Okay, nice. So this is we're about to enter into the fourth one that was previously approved, and that's the one that had Move Huge.
Okay.
So that was the first time we ever did that big, like, we have extra money for active transportation built into this bond, what should we use it on? So this fourth time's charm for getting a bunch of active transportation money. The city of Springfield, fun fact, is just doing their first ever road bond. Because I don't know if you've been to Springfield, but the roads are in terrible condition. Like it's really, really bad. And similar to Eugene, they have no money whatsoever set aside for active transportation in this first road bond. And that was the case in Eugene for the first road bond as well. It's kind of like you're building that political capital. The voters want to pay for paving. Like the pavement is so bad that that's all they care about. And then potentially over time, if I have anything to say about it, by messaging my counselor, Springfield could maybe start adding active transportation dollars like Eugene did.
Okay. And that happens every year or every 5 years?
That's how the Eugene one is. I'm not sure what the Springfield one is.
But those are for specific projects that are identified in the bond measure. So it's not just a big pool of money that you can spend. It's.
The voters actually
Yeah.
vote. The list is in the voters pamphlet.
So how does the bond get created then?
Like, how does that list get created?
Yeah, how does that
That's through
start?
a similar process that is separate from the transportation system plan. It's like a pavement preservation program. So they have a whole list of what shape the streets are in and what needs to be fixed before it becomes a really big liability or huge investment. Like we could spend 5 million now, or we could spend 15 million later. So they try to be on top of that so that they can fix things before they get really expensive to fix. So it's kind of a separate process.
Well, a question about the project prioritization matrix. Is that a like mutable or immutable formula? So like when you have a list of whatever 25 projects, are the ones that score the top 5 or whatever funding's available, are those, that's it? Or do you look at the top 5 and then maybe some of the others and say, well, but this would be a good one to do now because of this, and yeah.
Mutable.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not just like top 5 and we're bound by that. It's like, here's the ones that are ranking high, what's feasible? What could we theoretically get money for? Because we have to get the money.
And is that the transportation planning team that makes that decision?
I would say that the transportation planning team does a lot of the conversation.
Yeah.
And gets it high up, but ultimately it's often the city engineer and the public works director who give like that final call.
Okay.
Sometimes it's not that big of a decision, and the transportation planning team can just be like, we're gonna do this. it kind of depends on the level.
Okay, so that happens project by project. It's not just like, okay, the transportation planning team doesn't say, here's what we want to do this year. And the city engineer and public works look through it all and say, check, yes, or
Yeah, it's not quite like that.
it's
More like.
more sporadic.
It's more sporadic. Yeah, and that's like I guess sort of the nature of the work that we do is that it's sometimes subjective. Yeah.
Understood. I mean, I'm asking because a lot of times the ATC has an interest in being able to some influence.
Mhm.
And when we know that there's actually an opportunity for influence and it's not just like set in stone, then it gives us some agency.
Yeah, I think that little bit of subjectivity is really important,
Yeah,
and can be useful for people in positions like yours.
but it's also really important that we be informed at those critical points where we might want to express our opinion about why something should either be a priority now or
Mhm.
something else.
Yeah, and that's a good point, to sort of try and keep a pulse on and make sure that it gets to you all.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
if there was a way for us to know, like, what are the projects that are gonna be up for consideration
Mhm.
in the coming months for prioritization, that I think is something that's of great interest to this community.
And to build on what he said, it reinforces what we have been sort of starting to say, hey, we want to talk to the engineers. Because you all are interfacing with them, and so their purview is not just transportation stuff, but it's all the, wastewater, blah, blah, blah.
Water, bridges.
And we want to be on the horizon, on their radar in terms of how these things fit into their other priorities. And just to again reinforce, please have them come. We want to talk to them too.
Competitive grants is a huge part of what we do. And for example, one of those subjective processes in a staff meeting the other day, there's a new like Safe Routes to School grant. And our team was like, well, there's these 5 projects, like which one should we submit for this grant? And it can be, it's just a subjective process. It's like, well, is this one touching a senior center? Is this one touching a major arterial? And it's like, we're familiar with what makes a project competitive for a grant that will get it so that it'll win and we'll get the money. So it's just this difficult process where we're like, if the project touches River Road by a tiny little bit, now it's touching an arterial and is way more likely to win. So our team's always sort of trying to figure out when we're applying for these competitive grants, how can we make a project in Eugene, because it's a federal grant or a state grant, how can we get the money because we want it? So it's tricky. It can be tricky sometimes. So that's where we get back to project prioritization. So it's like, okay, well, we had this list, but now it's, what will be competitive? How do we, what funding is available, and how can we kind of take this list, and maybe a project partway down is the one that happens to be something we think will be competitive. Another thing that we've done in the past is we've gotten grants to fund just planning. So like Echo Hollow, for example, we were able to get a grant to do a planning process on Echo Hollow. We weren't able to receive any money for building anything, but sometimes if we can get a planning process, now we have a design and a plan. So when a grant comes up, we can submit that. And that makes you a lot more likely to get money too, is if you have a fully fledged plan and you've already done a community process. They're like, ooh, these people are ready to go, let's give them money. So it's complicated. So at some point, we'll probably apply for funding for Echo Hollow, because we have a plan that we were able to make through grants.
So MPO funds, what?
Oh, MPO funds, I don't know a ton about MPO funds. When Rob was here, he was like, they're extra money, but it's not that much. That's pretty much what I know. It's like a little bit of extra money that we can sometimes get to maybe just cover a little extra section of a project, or a slight overbuild or something like that, where we didn't quite have enough money and we need to cover it.
I had a question. Where does ODOT fit into all this, and like the ODOT projects in Eugene? Because I looked at their website, it's all highway widening all over Eugene. Does the city of Eugene have any say over that? or
So
where that money goes?
for the most part, Eugene's in a pretty unique position where, so a lot of cities, ODOT has a lot of influence because they own the highway that runs through town. So for example, if Eugene were like a regular city, Franklin Boulevard and 11th are Highway 126. Like that would be totally ODOT jurisdiction. We wouldn't really have much opportunity to do anything about those. But Eugene's unique in so much as it was able to get jurisdiction of most of our streets that are highways. So ODOT isn't quite as involved. We do have some bigger highways that ODOT still owns that aren't like that street level. You know,
West of,
like,
West 11th, like west of the Beltline, is that all ODOT?
I'm pretty sure the section that's in Eugene is Eugene.
Okay.
I think as soon as you get outside of Eugene, it turns back into ODOT.
Okay.
Yeah,
Pretty far though, that's.
it's pretty far, yeah. I'm sure there's a lot more nuance to how ODOT is involved. Robin Reed would know a lot more because ODOT is still involved in pretty much everything we do. So we have like just the signal poles for High Street, for example, when the supply chain issues were finally finished, they didn't ship to us, they shipped to ODOT. They shipped to Salem and ODOT has to go through and inspect and improve every single one before they can come to us. So it's like an additional delay. So we work with ODOT a ton. They are like involved in everything that we do, but it's complicated and it's nitty gritty.
And I guess the underlying question then is, does the city and through that, the ATC have any say over ODOT projects like highway ramps and stuff like that?
I would say that there's influence for sure.
Okay.
Like ODOT doesn't just come in and do whatever it wants. Like
Yeah.
it's important that ODOT is in a partnership with the city and with the residents of the town.
Okay.
So I would say that there's
Okay.
there's influence and opportunity. I'm not sure what level that is.
Okay.
Yeah. And if you know of something that ODOT's doing that you're feeling like you want to have a say on, you should let me know and maybe I could try and bring it to Rob and see if I can get more information.
Will do.
Because I'm still learning this kind of stuff too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. So the last piece, which ATC had asked about as well, was the why now, like how do project timelines happen? So like, for example, why are we doing a project at a certain time? How we secured funding is a huge one. Do we have money for it? Then obviously it's on the schedule to get built at some point, like the Oakway Road protected bikeway. We got funding for it several years ago. So we're kind of sitting on this funding and getting ready to do a planning process and then build something. Does the funding source have a deadline? A lot of times the funding sources are like, you must build something by 2026 or whatever. So it's like, now we're in a pinch point, we have to build it. And then the logistical thing. So like I was mentioning with that paving, those 2 paving projects, it's like, if we can logistically combine things, it can save taxpayer dollars. So that's another piece of why things happen at certain times. It's kind of like a big puzzle and we're just like slowly fitting all the pieces together as best as we can. Sometimes a bunch of stuff happens all at once that you really want to happen. So I think that's pretty much the end of that discussion. It's relatively high level. It's just kind of like, here's different pots of money. This is kind of how our team is doing it. We're always having conversations about what we can get money for. And at the end of the day, there's not a ton of guaranteed money for transportation projects in Eugene, particularly like walking and biking projects. Like there's not just money that we get every year that we get to use however we want. It's like, if we want to build something, we have to pursue funding for it. And that's a major piece of what the transportation planning team does, is securing money for things. So.
You have somebody who does grants like full time or what's that?
Trish Sharma is one of our planners and her job is mostly grants. She spends a lot of time writing grants. She's a hero on the team because that's a rough job. Yeah.
Just another nonprofit.
This is my next slide.
Colorful, I love it. Yeah, so our next agenda item is information share, and first topic is May is Bike Month. Hooray!
Hooray! If you didn't know, May is Bike Month. There's tons of events happening. May is Bike Month is unique this year compared to previous years where there's a passport. It's really cute. It's got all these pages, and if you go to events, you get stickers. And if you get 4 stickers, which is 1 event a week, although we're already a week in, so you better go to 2 events if you haven't been. If you have 4 stickers, you can bring your passport to Shift Community Cycles and you automatically get a prize. So they have mugs, they have bandanas, they have like actually pretty cool stuff, all designed by Eric Wonderly, who is the May is Bike Month artist this year. So he's a local artist. He has a mural here in
actually-
downtown.
Yeah, there's
It's
one
like
right
up
there.
isn't it?
Yeah, passed it on your way in.
I
Looks
think it's
great.
really close. I think it's just like right there.
Yeah.
And all of the prizes this year are by him. And then when you turn in your passport, you automatically get a prize, and then it also gets entered into the raffle for the larger grand prize, which I can't remember what the larger grand prize actually is. So that's really fun. There are,
Theme
I
is
would say-
birds or something.
the theme is birds, so all the stickers are birds. I actually have my passport.
I can find mine. There's somewhere.
It's right here. May is Bike Month passport,
Yeah.
and every week is a different type of bird. So last week was bird of the tropics. This week is birds of the coast. So if you go to events, they have all these different bird type stickers and you get to put them in their little habitat. Anyway, it's very if that's an incentive for you, I don't know. We have kind of 2 main featured events or like signature May's Bike Month events this year. The Better Ways Block Party is on May 19th. And we are going to be closing 8th Avenue to people who are driving and opening it up to people walking and biking and rolling and skating. And in between the Farmers Market Pavilion and the park blocks. We're going to be putting a big temporary roundabout at the corner of 8th and Park to teach people about roundabout right of way, and you can ride through it on your bike. There's going to be live music and Connect sculptures, and it's kind of got like a little mini open streets sort of vibe to it, transportation event. So it's free, and I think it's going to be really fun, and hopefully it's good weather. The other one is the Film by Bike Festival, which is the day before on Saturday, May 18th. It's a $10 ticket, and all of the proceeds go to Shift Community Cycles. And this one has a raffle where you can win this super cool vintage bike that they completely rebuilt. And it's like really beautiful. And I want to win it. I'm gonna go and definitely put my name in. So that's May 18th. And then I also put the breakfast at the bike bridges on there as well. So these are Friday morning events. So if you commute or go out for Friday morning bike rides, you can stop by these different events. There's 2 in May, and then 1 in June, 1 in July, 1 in August, and 1 in September at the different bike bridges across town. And you get free bagels and free coffee and just get a free bike tune-up, and also just like see other fun bike.
Are they all on the weekends or?
They're all Friday mornings.
Friday mornings. okay.
Mhm, yep, so from 7 to 9 AM on Friday.
Where's the one
mornings.
tomorrow?
There is one on May 17th.
Oh.
And that's
okay.
That's next Friday at the Blue Heron Bridge, which is right behind Cesar Chavez Elementary on the Fern Ridge Path.
Oh.
That's the name of that.
Yeah, it's called the Blue Heron Bridge. Most people don't know that.
No.
It's because it's a really tiny bridge that you almost don't even know you're
By
on
the
a bridge.
same-
Google Maps does not.
And Google Maps does not know that, so it is behind Cesar Chavez.
I like
Okay.
that bridge. Isn't that, you go under the street or something?
I don't
No, you
think
go
so.
over 18th.
Oh, yeah, you go over
Yeah.
the
Oh,
street.
okay.
No, that's what I mean.
And you go
Yeah,
into
that's-
Westmoreland Park.
Yeah.
Oh, that one.
Or one.
Oh, going that direction. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
that one's cool too.
We should get it added to Google.
The Albertsons.
I got you. I was confusing it with one that's
Albertsons to buy.
a little
Yeah.
farther on the bike.
So that's the one next
That's-
Friday, if you want to swing by and get some coffee and bagels. Everything is donated by local companies in town. So Nancy's donates cream cheese, and Toby's donates tofu spread, and Bagel Spear donates bagels, and so. Yeah, and we're doing one at 13th and High on June 28th, which is not a bike bridge. But it is the
Also-
intersection of
also
2
not in
prepared
May.
bikeways. Yeah, not May. Okay.
Well, neither,
That's
actually,
all I have.
Can I make a
none of
plug for a May's Bike Month event?
Yeah.
So there are gonna be 2 May's Bike Month yoga for cyclist events. The first one is this Sunday, which is also Mother's Day. It's at Shift Community Cycles. Erin will be leading that, but I'll also be there. So if you have any interest in learning some stretches or different breathing techniques and stuff like that to use while you're cycling, after cycling, it's a really good time for that. And I'll also be teaching one in Springfield on May 20th, which is a Monday night. So, if anyone's interested, that's happening.
What time is the yoga this Sunday?
Yeah.
It's at, I wanna say it's 10 AM.
Oh, okay.
Wait, check.
Is it yoga for mothers? Are you supposed to go with your mother?
Oh, I
Uh,
think you said yoga for cyclists.
yeah, it's yoga for cyclists. It's,
Okay.
but it is a Mother's Day
Oh.
yoga.
Oh.
But I think it's open to all.
Open to all, okay. Sorry, not the.
And do we need to bring our own yoga mat, or how are you guys gonna do that part?
You can bring your own yoga mat. There will be some loaner mats available and blocks. Yeah. Yeah, at 10 AM. So, yeah, come a little early, set up your mat and, yeah, it'd be lovely.
So
And
fun.
also, if the ATC wanted to, there are two opportunities, and I don't know who's gonna be in town or who has any time or whatever they want to put into it, but we could have a section, at the block party, the city of Eugene will have a table display. If we wanted to have a chunk of it for ATC type stuff, we could do that. So that's one option. If we wanted to have an ATC ride during May as Bike Month, we could do that and stick it onto the calendar. So I don't know if folks are interested in either or both of those things, but they're both possible.
Isn't there a High Street ride with?
There's an infrastructure ride
Infrastructure
with
ride.
Reed.
Yeah, we had kind of vaguely talked about doing a high street, like from the Rivers to Ridges, so like starting down at like Martin Street Trailhead or something and go all the way to the river or something, you know, just to show that's kind of the concept behind that bikeway.
Mhm.
It's fun.
When's the infrastructure ride?
I was
Yeah,
just
what's
gonna
the deal
pull
with
it up,
that?
cause I thought that might be interesting for,
Yeah, and I
The
think he does
80s.
include High Street, or at least a section of High Street.
Yeah, that seems really-
calendar, there we go. So this is the Mayor's Bike Month calendar. You go to webikeLane.org and then events and rides, and if you scroll down, there's this calendar option. And you can see all of the things that are happening. There's like tons of bike related events happening this month.
The color scheme matches the whole logo and everything.
Yeah, they're really on it this year. Let's see. Where is the infrastructure ride? There's the yoga. Bird Bike
Infrastructure
Tour.
ride with Reed, 17.
17, infrastructure ride with Reed. Meet at Kesey Square at 5 PM. Take a tour with our expert, Reed Dunbar, Senior Transportation.
Ooh. Bring your bike.
Bring your bike or scooter. Or use a Peace Health bike with your free Peace Health membership. If anyone wants to get a free month of Peace Health rides this month, you can do that. It's a free month of bike share. So if anyone's like been wanting to try it out or explore how to use Peace Health rides or just get to know that service more without having to pay for a month. This same website, webikeLane.org, you can go to free month of bike share. And it has the code right there, Bike Month 24. So anyway, yeah, I think it's worth checking out the calendar and seeing what
Yeah,
might
that's
be
nice.
fun or interesting to go to. There's tons of stuff happening this month.
Oh.
And all of these you can get a sticker at?
You can get a sticker at any
Oh,
of these
wow.
events. So you bring the passport. That's why only 4 is not that many when there's.
Well, when you see
Yeah.
that, I definitely
I
not
don't
looked at this.
know.
calendar.
And I think most of the events will have the passport that they can give you and then the sticker that they can provide.
Nothing on the 27th?
Yeah, I guess that's just the sad day. of
Aw.
events. If the ATC wants to do it right on the 22nd, then we should add a
What day of the
yoga
week
class.
is that?
Monday?
That's
Oh.
Memorial Day, isn't it?
Oh,
that's
Yeah,
that's
that's,
that's a
Memorial
holiday.
Day,
Everyone's
yeah.
taking the day off, even May's
I
Bike
might be
Week.
camping that day. but-
That's funny.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense.
Florence?
UGT Festival, Bike to the Festival for free. Generally.
What's a Florence group, right?
I think it's for Florence.
It's maybe a bigger bread in Florence.
Oh.
Yeah. They're like,
Oh, so we're
Florence
close to reach.
If you didn't know, Florence is part of Wayne County.
Yeah.
Which is always blows my mind.
Okay.
But yeah, since it's webikeLane.org, it is
Okay.
all of Lane County.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Blow your mind, Oak Ridge is also part of
Oak
Blaine
Ridge,
County.
so is Blue River.
And there's a bus that goes from Hoover to Florence.
Yeah,
Wow.
Blaine County is the only county in Oregon that has the beach and the mountains. So that's pretty cool.
Pretty cool.
Okay, I have another announcement, which is my team and I put together a citywide newsletter that went to 90,000 residential addresses in Eugene. If you live in the Eugene UGB, which I think all of you do, because I think you have to in order to be eligible for the ATC, you're gonna get one of these in the mail, but I did bring a few in case there were people who don't live in the Eugene UGB. Would want one. I also thought that if anyone wants to like take a look at it, at the end of the meeting, you could, and then you have a sneak preview into what's coming in the mail for you next week. And one of the reasons I wanted to bring this up is that as you read it, the idea is for it to be annual. So as you're reading it, if you're like, ooh, it would have been cool if they included this thing, or what if they talked about this thing, or it'd be really helpful if you have ideas for what next year's citywide newsletter could look like, I'd be really interested to hear those ideas. So just gonna sort of put that bug in your ear. Maybe next meeting, once you all have received the newsletter, we could have a short discussion about what you thought about it and what maybe we could think of for next year. What else is on our updates? BPAC share?
I can do a BPAC share.
Cool.
Hey, everybody, I'm Rachel Glazer. I live in Springfield, and Willow is correct that lots of streets need to be repaved. Or just paved, yeah. And then I also work at the U of O. I'm the active transportation coordinator at the U of O, so you may see me in that context, but I'm here as a member of BPAC to give an update. We just did our 2024 work plan, got that approved. We have two subcommittees, infrastructure and safe streets. So infrastructure wise, we'll be advising the city on some capital projects. There are a few projects that are underway right now on D Street. If you bike over to Springfield, you'll get off the path and you'll be on D Street, and there's some traffic calming that is still under construction. They're working on the raised crosswalk at one of the points across at Kelly. Thank you. But other humps are put in place, and they haven't done the Sharrows yet, but I think that's going to happen. So that is underway. There's also a second entrance now onto the bike path, where it was just that weird like 90-degree thing before, straight from the road onto the bike path. There's a second entrance that makes a little bit more sense. That's a little bit to the west of the original entrance. So two entrances. And then Mill Street, which once you get into Springfield from Eugene is like pretty immediate. That is going to be improved as well. I don't know the exact timeline on that, but they are doing utility work right now. And we're gonna continue to do other things, including some raised crosswalks. I think there is a section of a protected bikeway for a few blocks at least.
Yeah, I just emailed the transportation planner in Springfield to ask them because I live off of that street, and it's like the Kentucky Derby out there right now. There are potholes everywhere and people are like swerving all over the place, and it's Wild West. They're gonna put protected bike lanes from D to E. So D Street and E Street are kind of the two main routes that people use for biking, and then they're putting buffered bike lanes for the rest of the way up to Centennial, which is a big deal for Springfield. To even 2 blocks of protected bikeway, I feel like is really exciting.
It's really exciting, yeah. And like you were mentioning too, the bond for street improvement, that's on my voting ballot for the first time this year. So that is exciting, but it's going in a good direction. We just got bike share in Springfield. I don't know if y'all knew the expansion included downtown Springfield, so that is now also active. So a little bit here and there. We in our work plan are also going to be doing some. Well, I'm on the Safe Streets subcommittee, so I know more about that. Infrastructure stuff I'm not too sure on, but we are doing some safe streets, like walk audits, sidewalk audits, and that will be happening in June. We're going to do some in middle Springfield area around the Bob Kiefer Center, where a lot of people, you know, go, and so it'd be nice to address if they can walk and bike there safely. And then our website is pretty out of date. It's Walk Bike Springfield. We want to update the name. We want to update what's on it, and yeah, try to link some of the projects that are going on. So if people show up there, they can see what is going on in the city in terms of active transportation infrastructure. And then some outreach stuff. We'll be doing some path etiquette campaigns through the summer. We did Wheels by the Willamette event on that bike path between D and the I-5 bridge. I think there's another one on Thursday this week. Is that today? Yeah, that's why I'm
yes,
not
yeah.
there. I'm here. There was one last week too. And then, yes, there'll be another few, I think, throughout the summer. And then we are, yeah, interested in possibly exploring the option of doing an open streets event at some point, not this year, but maybe in the next few years in Springfield. That'd be really cool.
They've done block parties before downtown.
Oh, yeah.
We did one
block
last,
party.
over the summer, that was really pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, that has gotten pretty big. And ODOT does control our main street, which is very interesting. It makes it complicated to do stuff right downtown. But yeah, the block party has been successful. Yes, that's my update for BTAC. And we do have, I think, Brad and Peter who attend the meetings that we have every other month, like full group meetings. that we
Wow, you're busy.
Yeah, thanks for sharing.
Yeah,
That's exciting.
We also have a little bit of time left if any of the subcommittees want to report anything. Now there's a nice sidewalk committee email today.
Oh, just to the sidewalk, yeah. Yeah, the sidewalk committee, Jody's been great to work with, and she came to our last meeting and did a presentation about things that the city's thinking about and regarding sidewalks. And it did seem to us like there's some movement there, that they are really, thinking about what they can do. Nothing's been decided. And then I think we're gonna take everything we've heard so far, and I think this next month we'll be ready to say, are there recommendations now based on where we are now? Do we have some recommendations? I think we would bring them back to this group perhaps, and that would be some kind of process like that.
Yeah.
Okay, and the infrastructure committee has also met, and as I said, that's the meeting that Reed will be coming to next month. And we're looking at the bond measure projects for the coming 5 years and kind of see, looking at the projects that are gonna happen, are there some of them that would benefit from some special treatment for bikes and pedestrians, so we can't redesign the project, but, could this be striped differently? Could, just can they be tweaked in a way that would make a measurable difference for people walking and biking? We looked at the 2024 projects, and it's not clear whether obviously they're already under construction, so it's kind of late to, but we're looking at whether there might be a little wiggle room for painting them differently or in some way tweaking them, and then we'll go on to the other projects on that list, so.
Great.
So May 30th at Dark Pine, 5:30, be there.
What about a High Street sort of walkthrough like we've done before with Willamette Street and some other place, I wonder if we want to do that at some point, have an evaluation of that street.
We could at some point,
We could at some point. I think that sort of is initiated from the infrastructure group, but I'm not sure. I think in the past that might be where that sort of was started.
We got a full agenda at the moment, but we could do it sometime.
Yeah, if people thought that would be a good idea, because it was helpful when we did the Willamette Street one. I think we came up with a lot of good information. We just sort of did the corridor with Reed at the time, and we had a whole write-up, whether, I don't know that, anything came of it actually, but we did do it. It was instructive for us, I think.
Well, I think that will be, High Street will be a little part of Reed's infrastructure ride. That might be
Yeah, the whole thing.
a first glance at.
Yeah.
think that's it for our topics. The other one was construction season, but we covered that.
Yeah, I think that just
so-
kind of lives on there, but we had a whole agenda item for
Yeah,
construction this time.
So, yeah, so that concludes the meeting. Well, unless there's any last minute. Not last minute, just, yeah, last 4 minutes, questions or things people want to discuss.
Well, if we're in empty time of just like a few minutes, since I joined the committee, I've wanted to make this comment, so I always do, and it's completely not transportation related. We start with a land acknowledgement, and I always have like. I'm curious when we started doing that or how, I'm kind of interested in sharing something. I get mixed things even from Native people specifically actually about land acknowledgements. There's a lot of like, why do we even do them? And there's, yeah, I had a young Native friend actually like wrote an article a few years ago and like the student insurgent that was very like angry at land acknowledgements. I don't know, I wouldn't mind sharing it actually. It's like pretty.
Is it Hazel?
It is Hazel, yeah.
I was part of the
You're-
insurgent when, heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty good, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty, it's just like really accessible, but anyway, there's just a lot of, like, what else is it? The main kind of criticism is like, we do this land acknowledgement thing for like 3 seconds, and then we just like, what do we actually do? There's not like much connection to Native communities. We're not actually like asking them for their advice on transportation projects or so it's just like, hey, we took this land and there were some people and they're alternatives to land acknowledgements as well that are less like Hazel's word was performative pacifism, which I thought was like a really good charge level. So, and I know the city also is doing some actual interesting things outside of like this. Like Genevieve was doing some serious work there, and then given who's in community development, who's Native herself and is the grants manager, was a grants manager. They changed her title, but she has like so there is some interesting stuff, but in this context, I always kind of get a little cringy when someone just like reads a land acknowledgement.
Yeah,
It's like
there's a lot of mixed feelings around land acknowledgements. There's arguments that it's better to do the land acknowledgement than nothing at all. Other arguments are like, this is performative pacifism. The city has a land acknowledgement that ours is taken from. And it's kind of like the city is like, in public meetings, you should do this, so that's why we do it. Because we're a city entity and that's kind of the policy. So that's where we're at with it, but it's a good point that like, it could be pushed further. So that's.
I'll share the article.
Oh, yeah, or I have like the physical article from when she wrote it. Oh, yeah, we can bring copies.
Yeah.
There's a
if you want.
PDF. I think you can get a PDF if you find it.
Yeah.
Too.
But it's worth continuing to have discussion about, so thanks for bringing it up. Yeah. All right, let's call it a night.
Yeah, meeting adjourned.
That's still on.